Hello and welcome. This is the Insurance Pro Blog Podcast. This is episode 421. I am Brandon Roberts.
And I am Brantley Whitley.
And you, fortunate listener, are tuning in to the internet's favorite podcast about life insurance.
Wow, you're assuming they're fortunate.
Hey.
There you go.
Hey, optimism is abound here at the Insurance Pro Blog Podcast. It's what we do.
That's right. We're optimistic that things are going to get better.
We're on a mission to help the optimistic saver. Because that's who we are, and that's who we care about.
All right. I'm going to put you on a commercial.
Hey, every once in a while, we don't always hit them, but we gotta make an adapted. That's the right word. Tommy Boy reference.
An adapted.
An adapted Tommy Boy reference has to come.
We were so professional right up until that moment. So, IUL. We're going to talk about that again.
We are because look,
it's timely.
We have heard numerous times over the years. I don't want to talk about index universal life insurance because I feel like I already have more than enough market exposure. I'm trying to diversify out of that risk. So let's talk about other things.
Yep.
And we in a very non-confrontational way say, I hear what you're saying. And you know what? Other clients and prospects have felt the same way. But after exploring the various intricacies of index universal life insurance, this is what they have found.
Ooh, little found there, huh? See what you're doing.
No, we have
people listening don't know about the client builder meetings, so the reference is lost. But.
There's a percentage of people who sell life insurance who listen to this podcast. They're gonna chuckle.
Yep. And first of all, when someone says they don't want to talk about it, the initial response is, that's fine, we don't have to. Mm-hmm. But I would like to maybe shift the frame a little bit and help you understand that before you reject it completely, understand that you're not buying market exposure.
Correct. You're not buying market exposure, and you're also, index universal life insurance just does not necessarily participate in, move with the market. There are attributes that it has that make it unique in the way that it will behave under various market conditions.
Yep.
Which are going to be good when the market is on the rise, but I think it's really going to shine when the market gets really ugly.
Yeah, coming out of a correction.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it really shines.
Now,
because when everything's up, like let's say, we came out of what's a good time frame? 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We came out of May 2020.
Yeah.
Did an index universal life do well? Yes. But had you had the money in the market, you would have done far better.
Yeah.
Because
last year,
when there's a raging bull market, typically IUL, because of caps, is not going to perform anything like the market at all. I mean, you're going to do well, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to, if the S&P's up 30%, you got an 8% cap rate, you're going to get 8%. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some newer products that may do it a little differently, like the market's up 30%. Maybe you get some uncapped percentage of that 30%. Yep. That ends up being a higher number, but still, it's not 30%.
Right.
And I mean, exactly where I was going with this point. Like the good years, index universal life insurance does well. It does. And there is something very satisfying about an index universal life insurance policy's cash value growing by 15%.
Yes.
That's cool. That does things that are really great. And they're especially great to somebody who's been primarily exposed with that kind of money in something much more conservative than the market, right? So like if you had CDs or if you had whole life insurance or something along those lines and you started doing index universal life insurance and you get something like a 15% interest payment on cash value, a whole new world has arrived.
Yep.
But to your point, and it's a very solid point.
And I was going to say on the other side of the coin is for people who have had nothing but market exposure,
mm-hmm.
one of the things they delight in, if they get that same, we'll talk about the same 15% interest credit that you were just talking about, they get that and realize, I can't lose that.
Yes. Yep.
Like that money's mine.
That realization doesn't always come around at that point. Usually it takes something like what's going on right now. But
yep.
Yes, but to your earlier point, it's a very excellent point that if you get that 15% payment, that's great. But there are a number of people who come to the realization that but the market did 30.
Yeah.
So I could have done more. Now, some people would look at it and say, I don't need to do more, so I'm happy with 15. That's an incredible rate of return for a safe asset.
Yeah.
That's what I'm shooting for. It's actually well in excess of what I'm shooting for. So super happy with those results. But I think there is an even stronger reinforcement of indexed universal life insurance that comes about when we go through moments like what's currently unfolding in the US and even, dare I say, worldwide economy.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
now we see what you just said, which is, again, an excellent point. You receive some degree of interest payments, and then Liberation Day comes, and it ends up being not great for the market at all. And we see a very, very, very steep decline in market values if we look at general index investing.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of people are extremely exposed in their 401ks, their IRAs, and general brokerage account to that style of market investment. And they start to see their accounts decline substantially. Percentages are a difficult thing for people to wrap their head around. So for the most part, they don't think that much in terms of percentage declines. They look at it in absolute dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see their account balance down $100,000+, that causes a lot of anxiety.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Now, on the indexed universal life insurance side, nothing has happened.
Nope.
If you looked at your indexed universal life insurance cash value in February and then looked at it today, despite everything that has unfolded, your cash value is pretty much right where it was back then.
Roughly the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even now, for some people who are arriving at anniversary dates, for some, not all, indexed universal life insurance policies, because indexed accounts, they can differ a little bit. But if you're in just a general S&P 500 index account, the S&P 500 is still up like 5-ish% right now.
Year over year.
Yep.
Yeah.
As of the recording of this podcast, who knows what's going to happen by the time it goes live? I don't know.
5 minutes after we recorded, it could totally change.
But that means that if you are in a 1 year point to point, as they're called, S&P 500 index account, you probably have for the past 12 months, even with what's unfolded, a positive result.
Right.
So let's think about that though. So if you have the year prior, which was a fantastic year. Mm-hmm. So you if you have a cap, you probably capped out. If you don't have a cap, then you probably got a stellar payment.
Yep.
Then you come now, go forward 12 more months, which means you arrive here today where you're up 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Ish. That's not so bad. Versus, well, I wrote it up a whole lot higher, but then I wrote it down a whole lot lower.
Right. Yep.
And I know there's plenty of people out there showing us the 5 and 10 year mountain charts of the S&P 500 saying, see, look, it's still up. It's still up. It's still up. Don't freak out. And there's truth to that, but people don't like loss, and it does things psychologically to a number of people. So if you are starting to develop a plan about your retirement based on your account balance as of January 1st of this year, I'm going to hazard the bet that you've had to make some revisions in the past 30 days.
Yeah, I would assume.
And that does some things to the strategic planning about retirement. None of which has to take place with indexed universal life insurance.
Right. The magic is in the reset.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a hard thing for people to. It's not a difficult concept. It's just different from everything else that people have different ways people have saved and or invested their money in the past.
Yeah.
So getting their head wrapped around the annual reset is a thing.
It is.
Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, it's that segmentation of you only have to worry about what's happening for this 12-month period. And by worry, I mean worst case scenario is you get 0 or 1% in some cases, paid as interest, or something much higher than that. Years ago, we used to talk about it in terms of caps, but again, caps are becoming a little less common these days as things move to things like uncapped with participation rates or spreads, which means you kind of have a higher potential than what the old capped options used to give you.
Yep.
But let's just pretend. Let's talk for simple terms about caps. Let's talk about 10% cap. So you're looking at a scenario where worst case scenario is you get 0. Best case scenario is you get 10%.
Yep.
But every 12 months, that whole thing starts anew.
Yep.
So if you're in an index that's up 10%, let's say it's up 20%, you get 10% paid. So now you're starting much higher point, and market declines 10% on you.
Yep.
Through the next 12 months. Well, that means you just stay where you were.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move into the next 12-month period and the market rebounds. Let's say it rebounds 12%. Well, now you get another 10%.
Yep.
So that puts you in a place where you do not roll back with the market like everyone else does.
Yep.
And puts you in a position where you are constantly moving forward, not having to make up lost ground.
Yep.
I think you told me you were talking to somebody recently who had remarked that they had just barely clawed their way back from the losses of like 2022.
Yeah. Well,
so
they barely had previous to Liberation Day. So
yeah, okay.
I don't know what's happened since then, but I'm guessing they don't either. But I pulled up a policy that I knew had dates that were right around this time.
Yep.
Because I was curious. Because so this was as of March 23rd, which was the index date, the last index date for this.
Mm-hmm.
In this contract on March 23rd of 2024, the S&P was at, this is where it started for the contract year. Okay. The S&P was at 5,218.
Okay.
It ended March 23rd of 2025 at 5,767 and change.
Okay.
So about 10.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the person didn't get 10.5% because there was a cap that was lower than that. We've already talked about that. But the next segment closes tomorrow. Or depends on when you're listening to this, but it closes on April 23rd. I can't. Don't make me do time travel and all that.
Yeah, it's okay.
So April 23rd, 2024, the S&P was 5,070.
Okay.
Now, I don't know where it'll close tomorrow, but right now it's like 5,200 and change.
Yep. So it's up right now.
Right. But you see but my point's being, let's assume it closes at 5,200 tomorrow or on the 23rd.
Yep.
Then that has a lower starting point than the segment that closed on March 23rd, because that was 57.67.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point we're trying to make. Like, you don't have to recoup anything.
Nope.
You just get to move forward from wherever the index is, whichever, we're using the S&P in this example, but there's dozens of various indices that different companies use for, different purposes.
Yeah.
You just start where it is going forward. So that's why you'll hear us say very specifically, it's the movement in the index. It's not the index. You're not participating in the index. You just want it to move up.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
And if it doesn't, you get nothing.
But
you don't have to recover from, I have no idea from the beginning of the month to now officially where the S&P sits in terms of, let's say down 10%. I don't know if that's true or not, but probably not far off, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to recover that 10% before you start making money in an index universal life policy.
Right. And in the past, we've always made a big deal out of the fact that mean reversion means a lot to index universal life insurance, because there's going to be a sort of magnetism towards the general trend. So when things get overbought or oversold, that tends to help the movement just back to the mean, which doesn't necessarily result in a positive return for somebody in the market, but it could create positive results for index universal life insurance.
Yep.
We kind of have oftentimes neglected to mention this point that you just made, which is not only is there a positive result, but you don't have to make anything back up.
Right.
So that allows you to take interest payments that sort of stack on top of one another versus having to dig yourself out of a hole, and you just keep moving forward, which is one of the key things that removes an immense amount of sequence of returns risk away from index universal life insurance, especially on the distribution side of things.
Right. When you start taking money out of the contract, yeah.
Right, because you don't have a negative compounding element at play because you were losing money when the market goes down.
Right.
There's the chance that the accumulation of loan interest in a given year will be higher in relative sense, which means percentage terms, than the accumulation of cash value necessarily is.
Sure.
But for the most part, that doesn't matter, because the average is going to be, in general, the index earnings are matching or higher, and they're also being paid on a much larger balance of money than the loan balance.
Yep.
So this protects index universal life insurance a lot from needing to revise the income figures, and what makes it so solidly resilient against market fluctuation once somebody starts to use it for distribution.
Yep.
Even in the face of things like declining cap rates, so lowered expectations of long-term rate of return, which can happen, by the way. So cap rates or participation rates or spreads, they can all change in a direction that's less favorable, which means you would have to, if you were using the maximum allowed assumptions to model figures from your index universal life policy, adjust down your expectations.
Yeah.
We don't do that as a general rule. One of the core reasons behind our decision to subdue expectations is to leave contingency for that possibility. It's not to say that we are expecting it. It's just to say that we want to leave ourselves some wiggle room if it happens, to say we don't need to make revisions to the plan at this stage. So
if you're happy with those subdued expectations, then we feel confident you'll be happy long term.
Yep. Correct.
Because we've seen it. I mean, we've quite a few policies that we have on the books from clients that have not held, they've been around long enough that cap rates were much higher.
Yep. But here's the really cool thing. But here's the really cool thing about practically all of them. They're still right where we expected them to be, if not a little ahead of that.
Yep.
With very little concern that they're not going to match the expectations that we had at the outset.
Right.
I can think of one particular company for which that is not necessarily true, and that's it.
Yeah. But that one tends to be an anomaly.
Yep, it does.
We've not seen that across the board.
No, we've not. In addition to all of this, there has been an immense amount of evolution in the index universal life insurance space.
Yep.
Since this podcast started.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned earlier that years ago, we always talked about it in terms of floors and caps, and that was basically it. But times have changed, and there are different ways that interest gets credited, but there are also a lot of different indices now that are being rolled out on products, which creates a certain amount of additional diversification with regards to what happens under certain scenarios.
Yep.
There are a number of policies now with index options that are specifically designed to try and minimize down years or flat years in situations where market turmoil is high.
Yes.
A number of them use bonds as the alternative, which for the past couple of months has not worked out so well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the chapter's been written on that. Those accounts, those index products are well positioned to benefit significantly from a turnaround story.
Mm-hmm.
If we see conditions improve, the market boom, interest rates start to decline, bond yields start to move downward because there's more demand in bonds if there's a shift away from current worldwide policy, that is going to be a substantial upward movement on the index accounts inside those products.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
There's even some products now that allow people to basically stop the indexing segment prematurely by choosing to trigger a lock feature on the movement in the index before the end of the 12-month period.
Yeah.
And I believe the company that pioneered the concept has been mighty proud lately in its advertising to point out just what has been locked in terms of interest payments over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's a stellar number. It's an over 9% interest payment for the year over year being locked in on average.
Yep.
And I believe if I remember their communication correctly, over $100 million of cash interest attributable to the lock feature paid out across policyholders.
It's a pretty good deal.
It's a lot of money.
Yep. It is. Such a unique benefit.
Yep.
I'd like to see more companies do something like that.
Well,
it'd be nice.
We would. I don't know if they would. But
No. I'm just saying we would.
Yes. Yep. So
I'm always a fan of competition.
Yes.
Like someone else should come out with it and one up them. Let's start that battle.
It does make for additional innovation versus just kind of sitting where you are on your new idea and not improving upon it.
Yep.
Now, I want to be clear about something because we've been extremely careful and quick to point this out in the past. None of this is to suggest that you should go buy indexed universal life insurance because it's going to do better than the market.
No.
We do not believe that. We have never believed that. We're not going to start believing that.
Correct.
What we believe indexed universal life insurance can do is provide a hedge against bad conditions that can, do, and will happen in the future as a part of building a portfolio that is specifically focused on your ability to generate retirement income.
Yep.
Because for the overwhelming majority of Americans, that is really all that's ever going to matter.
Indeed.
The pursuit of accumulation just for the sake of accumulation does not necessarily put anybody anywhere special. If you work very hard to grow a $3 million account balance and retire, if you don't have a strategy for income, that $3 million is really just a huge anxiety liability.
Yeah.
That's an opinion that has been developed over the course of many, many, many years of dealing with people who find themselves in similar situations. They have what otherwise seems like a lot of money, but they don't really know what to do with it. And they're scared to death about making the wrong decision.
Yep. I got nothing to add there. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But it is. We've shown it numerous times that indexed universal life insurance is quite resilient in that case. And there are a number of people who are a little bit suspect of indexed universal life insurance, either because they don't like life insurance as a saving strategy, or they prefer strongly, for reasons they can't articulate, whole life insurance.
Right.
And there's this insinuation that if the market goes down, indexed universal life insurance goes with it.
Yep.
You and I have been at this for a long time. We have a lot of experience with indexed universal life insurance. And even since the inception of the Insurance Prologue podcast, we have witnessed a number of down years, market down years.
Yeah.
And despite that, indexed universal life insurance policies that we have in force, which span a wide array of companies and people and amount of money being saved in them, they've all done fine.
Yep. Have.
The good years overwhelmingly outweigh the bad years.
Yeah. And there have been some years where there were zeros. I mean,
Yep. Several. And despite that, there still have been plenty of good years. And in the bad years, I would argue the people who underappreciate the bad years the most are the ones who experience a bad year like right at the beginning.
yeah. And unfortunately, that does happen.
Yep. Because when that takes place, it's sort of like you got this kind of excitement about what this thing could do. A year goes by and well,
Yeah. And now you're looking at your original illustration and you're going, well, now I'm behind.
Yep. But the ones who appreciate it the most is when a bad year comes like after the 5th year or something like that.
Yep.
Because they've been accumulating, they're seeing what's going on. Bad year comes and they just kind of stay where they were.
Yep.
And they go, oh, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
It does work. So it is not tied directly to the market. It's not really correlated with the market. It has unique attributes that behave differently than the market will in the sense of being invested in the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a replacement for it. Should not do that. Should own stocks. We've never, ever, ever been against that. So understand that part.
Yep.
It's just another way to create a diversified exposure, which really means something when it comes to income strategy. It's not as apparent on an accumulation focused standpoint, but it becomes much more sharply in focus when you start to think about the income that can be created from various assets.
Yep. Anytime you can have a floor under your volatility, that's makes it that magnifies its ability to rely on it as a source of income.
Yep, it does. I don't have anything else to say.
I've said it all, obviously.
All right. Well, then in that case, I am Brandon Roberts.
And I'm Brantley Whitley.
We will see you next week.